Welcome back to Barrel with the B, where we break down big ideas in philosophy, literature, and life. I'm Jaden, your host, joined by my co host, Troy.
Hello, everybody. My name is Troy, and today we have a very special person on the show. Someone who dropped out of high school, Jack. Obviously, he's in dire need of a lesson or two.
Thanks for having me. I've got questions and I need answers.
Well, today we're tackling Neo-Absurdism, a fresh take on one of my favorite philosophers, Albert Camus, and his absurdist philosophy.
Okay, so let's start here. Is life just a series of random events, or is there something deeper to it? Because from what I've read about absurdism, it's all just meaningless, right?
That's an excellent start, Jack. Traditional absurdism, according to Camus, argues that life has no inherent meaning, and any attempt to find one is bound to fail. But neo absurdism takes it even further beyond, acknowledging that life seems and ultimately is random, but meaning emerges retrospectively when we look back on our past events.
Think about it like this. Ever had a series of completely unrelated events happen, and only later did you realize that they all led you to where you are now? Like, you miss your bus, you miss a test, and then you fail the class entirely. In the moment, it's just chaos, but in hindsight, there's a story there.
So it's like meaning isn't built into life, but we give it shape afterward?
Exactly. This idea ties into quantum mechanics, kind of like how particles can exist in multiple states until they're recorded, leaving behind one definitive past. The universe follows a probabilistic guideline as opposed to a strict deterministic one, so the future isn't fixed until it becomes the present.
Okay, but how does that apply to something, say, like Full Metal Damon Muramasa? That story is full of characters struggling with fate, justice, their own actions, that kind of thing.
Uh, sure. Whatever that is.
It's called a visual novel, Troy, kind of like Ace Attorney.
Okay.
For example, the protagonist, Minato Kageaki, constantly repeats the phrase, a demon must be slain with a demon. Would that align with Neo Absurdism?
That phrase suggests an acceptance of the cycle of violence. There's no moral force stopping it, no justice to rectify it. In a way, it embodies neo-absurdism because that guy isn't searching for an ultimate justification for his actions. He simply acts how he acts, knowing full well he can't impose some grand meaning on it.
Precisely. He doesn't operate under the illusion that his choices will fix the world. Instead, he embraces the absurdity of his situation. He understands that morality isn't some universal law, but something that only takes place through human action. And like we said before, it's only in hindsight that we can piece together what his actions even mean.
So, in a way, he's not trying to solve the absurd, but he's just living within it?
Exactly. It's not about rejecting meaning altogether, that would just be nihilism. It's about living fully in the present and letting meaning emerge naturally. The protagonist doesn't have the luxury of knowing how things will turn out, but he still acts. He moves forward despite the uncertainty.
This actually reminds me of something from a discussion we had earlier. There's this idea that we often try to impose order onto chaos because it makes us feel in control. We desperately want the universe to be structured in a way that makes sense to us. But the truth is, it's just a system of probabilities. What happens, happens, and our job isn't to force meaning, but to live vibrantly despite the fact that we exist in a meaningless world.
Right. Humans tend to struggle with randomness. We always want a reason why something happens, even if there isn't one. Like when something bad happens, we search for a moral lesson in it instead of accepting that sometimes things just happen.
Exactly, and Muramasa plays with that idea a lot. The protagonist's journey isn't about uncovering some ultimate truth about justice, it's about realizing that there isn't one. He makes his choices, he deals with the fallout, and only afterward can you look back and see the story that formed from those decisions.
What about the curse of Muramasa itself? It seems to dictate Kageyaki's actions almost like some kind of fate. Does that contradict neo absurdism since it suggests that he has to follow that set path?
At first glance, it does seem like a deterministic view, like he has no choice. But if you think about it, the curse doesn't give him answers or meaning. It just forces him to act. And his actions, even though they seem predetermined, it still generate unintended consequences that he can't predict. In the end, it's still a chaotic system where he's navigating blindly.
And in a way, it reflects our own lives. We're shaped by forces beyond our control our upbringing, society, even our basic biology. But that doesn't mean life follows a script. The future is uncertain, and we only piece together its meaning in retrospect. That's classic neo absurdism.
Okay, but what about regret? If meaning only comes later, doesn't that mean we might look back and wish we had done things differently?
That's the thing. Regret comes from the illusion that we could have controlled the randomness in our lives. But in a probability based universe, everything happened the only way it could have once observed. So instead of dwelling on what ifs, neo-absurdism encourages us to embrace what is.
And that ties into psychology. Humans crave structure, especially when it comes to narratives. We want things to make sense. But instead of forcing meaning onto life prematurely, neo-absurdism lets it arise naturally. Like a story, you can only understand it once it's finished.
That makes sense. So it's less about chasing meaning and more about being present and letting things unfold.
Yep, that's about right. Meaning isn't in the grand narratives, it's in experience itself. And that's the key takeaway. Don't stress about finding meaning in the now, just live, and meaning will come later.
Okay, so to sum up, neo-absurdism doesn't deny meaning, it just says we find it in hindsight. We don't control life's randomness, but we can control how we engage with it.
And that's the point. Don't waste time trying to force a purpose onto life. Just live and let meaning sort itself out later.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, hit the follow and let us know your thoughts. Until next time, embrace the absurd.
Thanks for watching.